you guys today. Wow. To say that was a tough watch, that would be an understatement. We got nothing we asked for, and we got everything we didn't want. The offense looked atrocious. The chicken with the head cut off offense looks bad. Stephanie White had Caitlin Clark off ball more tonight than anything we've seen so far this season. Not only off ball, but Caitlin Clark was left on an island all by herself all night.
You know what? Let's just go ahead and start this thing the right way, because I have been sitting on this all night and I physically cannot hold it in for one more second. Did you see that? Did you see that? Aaliyah Boston. Turnaround jumper. 2-point game. Caitlin Clark is standing wide open on the perimeter like she's been gift-wrapped for that moment by the basketball gods themselves. And we are giving the rock to Ab in the post. Again, one more time, for everybody in the back again. Welcome to Street Hoops. I'm Dre Fiver, and tonight we are pulling absolutely zero punches because what we just witnessed out at Chase Center was not simply a loss. It was a masterclass in how to waste a generational talent on the biggest stage, in the biggest moment, for no logical reason that I can identify. So we're going in, all the way in, buckle up. The Indiana Fever lost to the Golden State Valkyries 90-88, 2 points. 2. The most maddening part of this evening is not that the loss happened. Losing happens. The wnba is a competitive league, and road games and hostile environments are hard. What I cannot accept, what I absolutely refuse to make peace with, is losing while your best player, the best player in this league, arguably the most historically significant talent this sport has seen in 20 years, is standing on the arc waving her hand open while your coaching staff decides to go a completely different direction. That is not basketball strategy. That is a coaching staff actively working against its own interests and then wondering why it can't cash the check. Before we get into the malpractice portion of tonight's program, and yes, I said malpractice, I chose that word deliberately, let's give credit where credit is absolutely due. Because in the middle of this mess, something extraordinary happened tonight that the basketball world needs to acknowledge. Caitlin Clark became the fastest player in wnba history to reach 500 career assists. She got there in just 59 games. 59. For context that will genuinely stop you in your tracks, the previous record holder was Sue Bird. Hall of Famer, point guard royalty, one of the greatest distributors the women's game has ever produced. Sue Bird reached that same milestone in 82 games. Caitlin Clark did it 23 games faster. That 500th assist came on a gorgeous long dime to Sophie Cunningham midway through the second quarter, just a casual, effortless read. The kind of pass that looks routine until you remember nobody in the history of this league has ever gotten to this number this fast. Ever. And here is what makes that record even more staggering when you actually sit with it. She accomplished that milestone while shooting 3 for 12 on the night, while being booed every single time she touched the basketball by a sold-out Chase Center crowd that had circled this game on the calendar from the day the schedule dropped. While playing in a physical road environment following a contentious first matchup the week prior where she and a Golden State defender got into it verbally after the whistle, while carrying every expectation, every narrative, every broadcast camera angle, and every basketball interaction this team generated on her back. She set an all-time record under those conditions. Let that breathe. She also came into this game averaging career highs across every major statistical category, nearly 24 points per game, 9 assists per game. And the kind of two-way engagement that makes people who actually watch basketball understand why the conversations about her legacy are not premature. They are overdue. And yet, despite all of that, we are leaving San Francisco tonight with a loss. And the loss was completely, entirely, 100% avoidable. Let me paint the picture of how this game unfolded, because the box score alone does not capture how thoroughly disorganized the Indiana Fever looked on offense for stretches of this game. The first quarter set the tone immediately. Golden State came out with genuine energy and purpose. Veronica Burton was locked in from the opening tip, and the Fever came out looking like a team that had forgotten to run a walkthrough. The offense had the energy of a slow Tuesday morning at the post office. Nobody moving without the ball. Nobody cutting with urgency. Nobody setting screens with any intention behind them. It was Caitlin Clark standing in space with multiple defenders within arm's reach, while 4 other women in Fever uniforms did their best impression of decorative statues. And Dre's personal opinion? That's not on Caitlin Clark. That is a systemic failure. Let me talk specifically and deliberately about how Clark was being used tonight, because this is the crux of everything that went wrong. She was off the ball more during this game than I have seen from this coaching staff all season. Now, off-ball movement can be beautiful when it's designed correctly. When you are running your star off screens, manufacturing open threes through intelligent action, making defenses pay for hedging or doubling, that is elite offensive basketball. And it works. But that is not what this was. What this was Caitlin Clark standing in the corner watching while Indiana played 4-on-5 against a Valkyries defense that was perfectly happy to let everything else happen as long as Clark was out of the flow. Golden State had a very simple game plan. Make Clark work to get the ball. Make every catch difficult. Make every screen she tries to use a physical battle. And if she does get free, swarm her immediately. That plan works exactly 0% of the time if your other 4 players are threats. It works almost every time if your other 4 players are standing around waiting for the play to come to them. The pick and roll count in this game was an embarrassment. I will be generous and say it was maybe 3 or 4 times that Clark actually got a real action run for her. Everything else was either Clark trying to create off the dribble against a locked-in defense, or it was a play designed for somebody else that Clark then had to watch from the perimeter. And the few pick and rolls we did run, they looked like something designed in a rec league game. Guys, the slip and roll is not a play. It is what happens when the screener gives up before the play has even developed. It is the basketball equivalent of putting in a RARSum and leaving before the interview starts. No wonder Clark's back was bothering her earlier this season. She has been grinding through contact, grinding through poor actions, trying to manufacture offense for this team largely on individual effort. Now let's talk about Kelsey Mitchell, because this one genuinely hurt. 5 for 13 from the field, 3 assists, 5 personal fouls, 5 fouls. Kelsey, we simply cannot afford that. Kelsey Mitchell is supposed to be the secondary weapon, the player who makes the defense make an impossible choice between containing her and containing Clark. When Kelsey is right, this offense becomes legitimately dangerous, because you cannot simultaneously lock up 2 different isolation scorers at the guard position when one of them is the best creator in the league. But tonight, Kelsey was not cooking. She was not even warm. And the foul trouble put her in a straitjacket for the 4th quarter, which is exactly when this team needed her pulling defenders away from Clark and creating driving lanes. There was a specific sequence late in the game where the Fever desperately needed a bucket. Clark had possession. And instead of immediately reversing it back to number 22 and letting her create, Kelsey dribbled it herself and ran the clock down into nothing. Baby, turn the ball around. Give it to the woman and let her go to work. That is the correct basketball play. Every time. Without exception. And then there is Aaliyah Boston. And I want to take a breath here because I genuinely respect Aaliyah Boston as a basketball player. And I do not enjoy being hard on someone who is clearly giving effort. But $6 million is not effort money. $6 million is production money. And tonight, in the moments that defined the game, the production was not there. 4 for 11 from the field. 13 points. And the offensive foul issue keeps appearing, and I know people want to point the finger at flopping, and I hear them, but part of what we keep watching is a footwork problem. If you are trying to establish post position and the defense gets there first, any contact you initiate going forward is going to get called on you every single time. That is the physics of professional basketball. The way to avoid that call is to get to your spot earlier, establish before they arrive, make them fight through your body instead of the other way around. We keep seeing this same film, and it is costing this team points and possessions in situations where they can least afford it. Here is the part of tonight that honestly makes me the most frustrated, because in the middle of all this dysfunction, one player showed up and played the best game of her young professional career, Raven Johnson. The 10th overall pick in this year's draft out of South Carolina, a 2-time national champion, the SEC Defensive Player of the Year, a player who came into this league with a reputation as an elite defender and a versatile offensive piece who understood the game at a high level. Tonight, she proved every word of that scouting report correct. 16 points, 7 for 10 from the field, 2 for 3 from 3. That is not a good rookie game. That is a good game, period, by any professional player on any roster in this league, and it was completely wasted. Wasted because the team around her could not execute. Wasted because the offense never found a rhythm. Wasted because when a rookie shows up and outperforms the veterans around her on the road in a hostile environment, and the team still loses, the problem is not the rookie. The problem is the system. If the Indiana Fever had won this game tonight, we would all be sitting here talking about Raven Johnson as the breakout story of the early wnba season. Instead, we're talking about a missed turnaround jumper. The basketball gods have a cruel sense of humor. I also want to be very specific about the turnovers, because the turnover sequence in the final 2 minutes of this game is where the game officially died. Clark turned it over with 1:32 left. Then she turned it over again with 1:06 to go. Then she missed a 3 with 40 seconds on the clock. Now, I want to be crystal clear, I am not putting this entirely at Clark's feet. Turnovers in late game situations are almost never just about the player with the ball. They are about the actions run for that player. Are the reads clean? Are the catches clean? Is the play design creating space, or is Clark trying to make something out of nothing against a collapsing defense with the shot clock running down? And tonight, the answers to those questions pointed directly at the system, not the star. After Cunningham hit an uncontested layup to cut the deficit to 2 with under 30 seconds left, we had one more chance, one more timeout, one more play to draw up, and what we got was Aaliyah Boston catching the ball in the post. Again, the same play, the same concept, the same alignment that had been failing this team all night. And Caitlin Clark, the fastest player in wnba history to 500 career assists, the woman averaging more dimes per game than anyone in this league at this pace in history, the player that every single person in that building on both benches knows is the most dangerous scorer on the floor, was standing wide open at the three-point line, waving, available, unfound, and the ball never got to her. Boston missed. The buzzer sounded. Chase Center lost its mind, and Clark stood there with her hands on her hips and watched. Dre's honest opinion? I have a theory about what this offense looks like when crunch time hits, and I am not going to sugarcoat it. The play calling in late game situations this season has trended toward post-isolation for Boston in moments where the math clearly says get the ball to Clark. I do not know whether that is a personnel preference, a matchup read that I am not seeing from the broadcast angle, or something else entirely. What I know is what I see. And what I see is a team with the greatest creator in the league consistently being kept out of the final equation. That is a coaching problem. Full stop. And the fact that it has now happened more than once in meaningful games against quality opponents means it is not an accident or a one-off adjustment. It is a tendency. And tendencies in professional sports get exploited. Let me talk about Veronica Burton for a moment, because she deserves her flowers even in an episode where I am very much coming for her team's win. 25 points, 6 rebounds, a career best 5 block shots from a guard, 5 blocks from a point guard in regulation. And the Fever's offense was so compromised, so stripped of its normal aggression and inside threat, that Burton was able to sit back, read the limited action coming her way, and erase plays at the rim like she had a mortgage on the paint. That is a remarkable individual performance. But it is also a reflection of an Indiana offense that was not doing enough to make her choose between protecting the basket and guarding the perimeter. When your opponent's guard can block 5 shots in a game without leaving the lane, your team is not attacking the basket enough. Period. Now let me say something about Monique Billings, and I am going to be brief because frankly the performance does not merit extended analysis. $850,000. That is the contract number. For that kind of investment, this team needs a player who can finish around the basket, create second chance points, and physically impose themselves on the interior when the primary offense stalls. What we got tonight was a ghost, an absolute ghost. I was told by people who watch this game closely and know this team that Monique Billings was an elite finisher around the rim. I am still waiting to see that player show up. There is also the CC factor, and by that I mean the shooting inconsistency that has been a nagging subplot this season. On a night when this team desperately needed someone else to carry offensive weight, when Clark was being hounded, when the pick and roll wasn't generating clean looks, when the offense needed a release valve, the answer should have been getting Cece to the free throw line. 15 free throws would have changed the entire complexion of this game. Taking the ball strong to the basket, drawing fouls, and making the defense pay physically is exactly the kind of complementary production this offense needs from her. The three-point shooting going cold is forgivable. The inability to manufacture production through other means on a night like this is the more serious concern. And here is the broader point that I want to leave you with, because I think it is the most important thing I can say tonight. When Caitlin Clark is locked in, when she is in that mode that we have all witnessed this season, the 30-point nights, the games where she is making everybody around her look like an all-star, just by putting them in the right spots, this team is genuinely difficult to beat. We saw it multiple times already in 2026. The wins have been decisive. The performances have been transcendent. Clark in full flight is one of the most complete basketball spectacles this league has ever produced, and it is not particularly close. But you cannot build a championship roster around one player going superhero mode every single night. You cannot ask one human being to carry the physical, mental, and creative weight of an entire offensive ecosystem on her back indefinitely. The supporting cast has to rise, the play design has to evolve, the late game call structure has to get smarter, and the fundamental question of how to best deploy the greatest creator on your roster in the moments that matter most, that question needs a better answer than what we saw tonight. Raven Johnson gave this team everything she had. Caitlin Clark broke yet another all-time record while going 3 for 12 in a road-hostile environment and still nearly willed Indiana to a win. The Fever had multiple chances in the final minute to steal this game, and they still left Chase Center empty-handed. That is the story of where this team is right now. Enormous ceiling, unresolved structural problems, and a generational talent asking her teammates and her coaching staff to meet her where she is. The gap between where this team is and where it needs to be is not talent. The talent is there. The gap is execution. The gap is system. The gap is the courage to trust your best player with the ball when the whole season is on the line. Figure that out, Indiana, because the next time Caitlin Clark is standing wide open on the three-point line in a two-point game with the buzzer coming the right call is obvious. Make it. That's Street Hoops. No filter. No apologies. No sugarcoating. If you have been feeling this same frustration, if you were screaming at your screen the same way I was screaming at mine tonight, I need you to absolutely smash that like button right now, because this kind of real talk does not produce itself. Drop your most unfiltered hot take in the comments below. Who carries the most blame for this loss tonight? The coach? The supporting cast? The play design? I want every single one of your opinions because this conversation is absolutely not finished. And if you are new to Street Hoops and you are tired of the mainstream media dancing around the truth about this team, subscribe right now because we are here every single time the Fever need to be held accountable. I'm Dre Fiver. We'll see you next time. Stay locked in.